Hey everyone, so in this video I wanted to talk about student loans, basically the problem that we have going on right now and what you can do if you're still in high school or even if you're in college and you want to figure out how you can reduce your student loans or be able to finish college without any student loans at all. So me personally, I'm pretty thankful that I've been able to make it to my senior year without any student loans. And so I'm just going to be talking about basically the steps I took to do this, uh, different different help and resources I've used along the way, and then also what you could do to help yourself not have student loans as well. So first, I did well in high school. I finished with around a 3.6 GPA, and that gave me a scholarship of 6,000 a year. Now, the second thing I did was I was able to get some help from my parents. I'm pretty lucky and blessed to have that. I'm not gonna lie. My parents have covered 50% of my tuition and 100% of my rent throughout college. And so I'm not gonna lie, that's been very beneficial. It's helped me out a lot. My tuition is 12,000 a year, and so my scholarship covers half of that, and then they cover the other half. And my rent, they have been covering that for 3 years, so that's helped me out a lot. And the third tip I have is to stay in state for college. That's what I've done. I've attended high school in Tucson, Arizona, and right now I'm still in Tucson, Arizona. I go to um, U of A, and so it's an in-state college. It may not be as good as Stanford or Duke or an Ivy League school, but for me, my priority going into college was no student loans, and so that's what I've focused on. Next, this was kind of a sacrifice really that I've had to make throughout college, but it's helped out a lot. I never purchased a meal plan. I never had that ability to go and get Chick-fil-A 2, 3 times a day or get Steak and Shake or Papa John's and all that. If I ever got that, I had to pay it from the money I got from working. I didn't just have that meal plan where I could go and just buy meals over and over without any issue or not have any cost at the time. And the reason I say that this is important is because meal plans can often be overpriced. You may spend 1,500, 2 grand, 2.5 grand, and you end up only using maybe 500 or 750 of that in actual food that you end up buying and eating, right? So if you look at it, depending on how much you're going to the food court, if you're only going once a day or every other day, you really don't need a meal plan. It's better to just pay, each time as you go, and not worry about spending that, 2 grand or 2.5 grand or whatever it is all at once. Now, the next sacrifice I had to make was I haven't been in a fraternity throughout college. Fraternities and sororities, they both have a lot of benefits. They have networking, they have some cool parties, they have philanthropy. But I didn't join one because I just didn't have the funds for it, and I didn't want to take out student loans to be in one. Um, Now there are some where they offer scholarships and you can have a good enough GPA and they can cover it, but I didn't really know about that until later on, and it just didn't end up working out for me. So I haven't been a part of a fraternity, and because I don't have to pay that 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever it is each semester, it has helped me avoid student loans, honestly. So it has been a sacrifice, but I believe it is part of what's helped me to not have to take out any loans. Now, the next thing I've done in college is I've kept my GPA above a 3.0. So I've done this through going to class, doing homework, going to office hours, doing my projects, studying, making sure I do my best on tests. Right, all these different actions and disciplines, I've put them together to make sure I keep my GPA up, because For me, my scholarship is based on that GPA. So if I had fell below a 3.0, I would have lost my scholarship. And actually, my freshman year, I only had 27 units at the end of the year, and I had to take a summer course so that I could meet that requirement and keep my scholarship. So, sometimes in college you're going to get into situations like that where you have to take a summer or winter course if you're on scholarship, and you're going to have to do whatever it takes to make sure you keep that scholarship. It may not be fun at the time, but if you have a scholarship, you really want to do your best to keep it through the whole 4 years of college. Now, the next sacrifice I had to make to not have student loans was I didn't buy a nice car or go on many fancy vacations. Some people they don't necessarily take out student loans to cover tuition or rent, but they want to live nice during college, so they end up taking out a student loan and just using it to get themselves, a BMW or a Mercedes or a Mustang, right? Or get a Range Rover, or they might use it to go to Cabo. Go to Rocky Point, go to Spain, go study abroad, and all of that is great, of course. Like, it's great to live and enjoy, while you're young, of course. But at the same time, you have to understand that if you do take student loans out for that you're hurting your future self, right? You're hurting yourself 10 years from now, 15 years, whatever it is, because whenever you graduate, you're going to have to pay off those loans. And for most of us, we're going to have to pay it off ourselves. Some people might have family or a significant other help them out, pay it off. But for most of us, we're going to be paying it. You're going to be paying it on your own, right? And so, that's why for me, I knew, like, going into college, like, hey, it's all on me, right? It's going to be all on me, whatever loans I take. And so that's why I knew I was going to have to make a lot of these sacrifices, right? And so, I've drove a 2006 Audi, a Suzuki, a 2007 Pontiac. So I've been driving used cars throughout college. And all of them relatively cheap cars, repairs here and there. But even the repairs, it's still cheaper than paying, $300, $400, $500 a month for a car payment, right? And so that it's just been a sacrifice that I've had to make to avoid taking a loan. Now, the next thing on my list here is that I have worked throughout college. My first job was in fast food, and after that I've worked in customer service, I've worked in sales, I've done Postmates, DoorDash, I've walked dogs sometimes. I've done drop shipping, trading, investing. I've done a lot throughout college to try to cover at least part of my expenses. I'll be 100% honest and transparent. I haven't been able to cover my rent, as I mentioned. My parents helped me out a lot with that. But I have been able to cover, like gas, haircuts, fast food, movies, dates, right? Small events like that. My freshman year, I went to Rocky Point with a few people. I saved up for a bit before that trip so I could cover it, without any loan. And so it's been a sacrifice at times. Like, I've missed out on some parties sometimes I missed out on football games, but I was only really working about 15-20 hours a week for the most part. In some semesters I was able to get by without working. My parents helped me a little more those semesters, but I'd say I've worked about half the time in college. So that's helped me cover expenses when my parents were in a crunch, or when unexpected things came up, like when a car repair came up, or I remember one time I moved away from my old roommates and I had to pay $300 for a transfer fee, right? So different expenses can come up, and if you're working, you're going to have the income coming in to cover it, And, I will say you could get by during college without working if you have parents that can help you, or if you have savings. But if you don't have savings, which is the situation I was in when I entered college, I had to work during college just to make sure I could cover those expenses. It came down to that decision. Like, do I want to make this sacrifice, or am I going to take out the student loan? The hard way or the easy way, which one was I going to pick? And I chose to take that harder route most of the time, so that in the future my life would be easier. And the last point, I think this is a pretty big one and important. last but not least, is that all the apartments I have lived in have costed 500 to, if they're costed $500 to $700 a month, right? 500 on the low end, 700 on the high end. In between that range has been the apartments I've lived in. I've had times where there's a hole in the roof and water leaks in. I've had times where I've seen homeless people, jumping in the dumpster right next to the apartment. I had my motorcycle stolen recently from my apartment. I've had the electricity turn off multiple times in the apartment I was in last year. So, it is what it is. When you live in a cheaper apartment, you're gonna have to deal with certain difficulties like that. But again, my main goal going into college was to graduate with no student loans. And right now I'm very close to that goal. I just have the rest of this semester and then the next semester, and I'm going to complete my goal. And all of these sacrifices put together have really helped me out to be able to to get closer to that goal. Knock on wood, nothing happens, and I can be able to complete it because I have pretty much one semester left. But I'm pretty close here, and it was tough at times. It was definitely really tough at times. Often I saw other guys like going on fancy vacations or taking their girlfriend out to eat, and I wish I could have been doing stuff like that, but I just didn't have the finances for it. And it's been tough at times, but I really think in the long run it'll pay off. And when I talk about long run, I'm talking about, say, when I'm 40, 45, 50, right? I'm talking about, when I get to that age, because, graduate with no student loans, I will be able to start saving pretty much right away, as long as I can get a difference between, my rent and groceries and electricity and all that and what I'm making after taxes. And it's just a lot easier to save when you don't have that 300, 500, 700, whatever a month student loan payment, right? It takes an obligation off my plate and allows for more opportunity for saving and investing. So yeah, I think we really do have a big student loan problem, and I really believe people should do their best to be more conscious about it before they just sign that contract and potentially put themselves into a bad situation, right? Like, and for the high school juniors and seniors, like, really do your best to finish out strong. Aim for a 3.5, aim for a 3.7, aim for a 4.0, because if you finish high school with a 4.0 and then you have work experience on top of that, or you were in clubs or you're in sports, you're pretty much going to be set to get through college without much problem. Unless you go private school or you try to go Ivy League, that's going to be a different scenario, right? If you want to go those, then you're going to need the 4.0, you're going to need work experience, you're going to need the resume, you're going to need sports, right? You're going to need references, you're going to need a lot more to get through that without student loans than a public school without student loans, right? That's a whole nother discussion. But my point is that, if you're a high school senior, before you go to college, really think about, how could I get through college without student loans? Like, is it possible for me? And then if you do decide that you need to take student loans, try to figure out the least amount possible, right? Like, you don't have to make every sacrifice. A lot of these sacrifices, they're not going to be for everyone. Like some people, they may want to live in a fancy apartment, but they won't be in a fraternity, or they may be in a fraternity but they won't take fancy vacations, right? So there's different sacrifices you can make. Like, you can pick what works for you. Like, I've still done some traveling throughout college, but what I've done is, I take short 1 to 3 hour drives, right? I'm in Tucson, and so I'll go to Phoenix sometimes, right? I'll go to Mount Lemmon, I'll go to Flagstaff sometimes. And so I've been able to do trips like that, which are cheaper, instead of, trying to go to New York or Chicago or Miami, or, trips where you're flying, you have to get a hotel for a long time. And so, really overall the point is that you can get through college without student loans. You can do it. You can make it happen. I know the media wants you to believe that it's so normal to take student loans, but I'm telling you, you don't have to be normal. You don't have to follow that route. And I do understand that not everybody has parents that are willing to help them like I am. But there's still different ways, like you could go to the military and they'll cover your college, right? Or you could graduate high school, work for 3-4 years, save up some money, and then go back to college at 22, 23 and pay for it in cash, right? Or you could go to community college for 2 years, save up, and then go to university. You could go to trade school, get a certification, work for 2-3 years, and then if you find out you don't like it, you have some money saved up. Now you can go apply to a public university. You can apply to scholarships and have the scholarships cover your tuition that way, right? If you get a 4.0 at a high school because of that good grades, because of your good grades, that will cover the entire 4 years of college. It will cover the whole time. So there's so many different ways, to get it done and to get through college without student loans. Mine just happened to be 1, having a good GPA, 2, having help from parents, 3, working, and then 4, just making those different sacrifices to save money, whether it's living in a shitty apartment, driving a used car, not eating out, not going on fancy vacations. These are just different sacrifices, right? And that's really what it's about to achieve your goals. You have to make certain sacrifices, Not everybody wants to hear that, honestly. And I know a lot of people probably won't like that, but it's really the truth. That's what it comes down to. You have to be willing to let go of some privileges, some comforts, right? Some experiences, to be able to, achieve certain goals, right? Everybody's gonna have to do it at some point in their life. And I really think the sooner you can do it, the better. And like a lot of people, they end up, paying student loans until they're 30, 35, 40, even 50. And I just want to see people be able to avoid that, because there's so much you can do. Like when I'm graduate, I have the opportunity to save up and get myself a nice car in 2-3 years, right? I have the opportunity to get myself buy a house by 30 if I wanted to, right? I have opportunities that are going to be easier to achieve because I don't have that, that liability and that obligation, to pay back those student loans, right? I don't have to fork over a lot of extra money to Uncle Sam. I can keep more money in my pocket and do what's best for me. And I think a lot of people would just fall into that trap and really should try to do their best to avoid it if they can. We all know this, but I think from student to student, it's a different perspective from parent to student, because, a lot of times I feel like we can relate to people who's in our shoes at the current time, right? Because the previous generation, college was cheaper for them. They didn't have to stress as much. Our generation, we have to really understand the finances before going into college, or else you could find yourself graduating 30K, 50K, 100K, right? So overall, if you can get through college without student loans, amazing, great. You're going to set yourself up. And if you can't, just make sure you have a plan to pay it back, and that you're going into some type of career that's at least somewhat lucrative. It doesn't have to be 100K, 200K, anything like that, but at least like 40, 50K, so you can pay it back. And you just got to do the math. You don't want to take 100K student loans for a career that's going to pay you 30K a year. The math just doesn't work out, right? So if you have to take student loans, maybe you have to take out 20K, but you get a position that's 50K or 60K. Now you're not doing that bad. Now you could pay off your student loans in 3 years, maybe 5 years, right? It's manageable. So at the end of the day, you have to do that math, those calculations, if you're going to take out the student loans, because that'll really help you to manage it and make sure you're not taking out more than you can afford. So, that's pretty much it for this video. I appreciate y'all for watching, and this is something that I do care about, because as a student, I've seen some people talk about their student loans, and I know it can be pretty stressful. And so this is just my advice on what you can do to limit that and avoid it if possible. And I hope this helps someone out.